Imagine a still lake glowing orange from a summer sunset. The air is quiet, warm, and a little heavy. The kind of evening where the world slows down just enough to notice it. I was standing there in 2016 holding a camera that wasn't even mine. My parents originally bought the camera to take photos of my sister and I, but on that night out at Lake Yankton, it felt like it suddenly belonged in my hands. I snapped a photo I later named Fisherman's Escape, and as soon as the screen lit up, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Real pride. Not accidental pride, not, hey, that's cool pride, but the kind where you think, I actually made this. I made something that looks professional. But what makes that moment wild is that I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't following tutorials, I wasn't watching videos, and I wasn't chasing someone else's style. I was literally turning dials and hoping something clicked, with the camera and maybe myself too. That camera started out as something fun, something different, and a way to freeze little moments and look back on them. I didn't know then that I was teaching myself to see the world in a new way. I didn't know that learning the hands-on way, the slow way, would end up giving me the confidence to create exactly what I envisioned. And today, years later, that's the part of my work I want you to feel. Like you're standing there with me in the places I've captured, like each photo is a doorway you can walk through, a story you can step into, and maybe even a memory that becomes yours for a moment. One sunset, one photo, and one camera I barely understood. That's where everything started. Before photography, I was just a normal teenager trying to figure out life like everyone else. I had just started my freshman year of high school and I didn't have any clear direction. I didn't know who I wanted to be yet, and I was still piecing myself together one day at a time. Hockey was a part of my life back then, but it wasn't my whole identity. It was just one piece of the bigger high school picture. From practices to hanging out with friends to trying to keep up with school and dealing with the constant chaos that comes with being a teenager. Life felt busy, loud, and confusing in the way that it does when you're young and don't have anything figured out yet. In photography back then, it wasn't some calling, it wasn't a passion or a purpose. It was just a fun little hobby I'd pick up from time to time. My parents had the camera first, and I mainly used it when something looked cool enough to take a photo of. But even in those early days, something happened every time I held that camera. It quieted the world down. When everything else felt like it was moving 100 miles an hour, the camera let me slow down. It gave me space, and it let me focus on one single thing instead of feeling pulled in every direction at once. By the time I hit my junior year, things started to shift. Photography stopped being something I did sometimes and started becoming a real part of me. I brought my camera everywhere, to the lake, on trips, anywhere that looked like it might turn into a moment worth capturing. And I pushed myself. I started trying things I had no idea how to do. Long exposures, night shots, fully manual settings. I wasn't learning from tutorials, I was learning by doing, failing, adjusting, and slowly figuring out the way the camera worked so I could keep challenging myself. Looking back now on that earlier version of me, the kid who didn't know where life was leading, I wish I could talk to him. I'd tell him that every frustrating moment, every sticking point, and every time he felt like he wasn't good enough, those are the parts that end up mattering the most. I'd tell him that the dreams he had, the ones that felt like light years away, seeing photographers he admired on the walls, imagining someday being one of them, those dreams aren't distant stars when you can be the entire Milky Way galaxy. Learning photography without tutorials sounds romantic in hindsight, but at the time it was anything but easy. Every concept felt like a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Aperture, shutter speed, ISO, all these terms that photographers throw around so casually, they felt like a different language. And it wasn't just understanding what they meant, it was understanding how they worked together. How one change affected everything else. How to make a photo feel like how it felt in my head. On top of that, I was trying to learn all of this while being colorblind. And that added a whole extra layer of doubt. How do you create something beautiful when you don't even see color the same way other people do? I constantly questioned whether my edits were too dull, too saturated, too harsh, or too flat. It felt like I was fighting the camera, fighting the colors, and fighting my own brain at the same time. And there were definitely moments, more than I'd like to admit, where it didn't feel worth it. Moments when I told myself, maybe this is too much. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Life was already confusing enough, and photography just added another challenge on top of everything else. High school was an odd time in my life. I got into a relationship that became a huge portion of my life. The kind of relationship where you think you have it all figured out, where you think the other person is the missing piece that makes you feel whole. We were together all through high school. We grew up together. My sophomore year, everything cracked open. School had ended one day, and I ran into a friend in the hallway, and he looked at me, and he asked, "Did you hear about Blaine?" Blaine was a friend I played summer hockey with, an incredible person, and someone I had so many good memories with. I said no, and he told me Blaine had passed away in a car crash. My world collapsed. It didn't feel real, and it felt like the ground under my life broke apart. A while later, my girlfriend at the time had lost her grandpa, and that was hard on both of us, but especially on her. We leaned on each other, and we tried to navigate everything together, and for a while we did. We even stayed together after high school. We made it through COVID together, but eventually, we grew in different directions. We weren't what the other person needed anymore. And when that relationship ended, it felt like I was losing the version of myself I'd been building for years. I had to figure out who I was without someone else defining it for me. I had to learn to be on my own, and it was lonely, it was disorienting, and it forced me to face a lot of parts of myself I had been avoiding for a long time. Through all of it, the confusion, the grief, the heartbreak, the transitions, photography was that one constant, the one thing that didn't leave, the one thing that didn't fall apart. Every time life got heavy, the camera was there. Every time I didn't know how to deal with something, the camera gave me a place to put those feelings. It didn't fix anything, but it helped me process everything. And then, a few years later, something changed. I started getting close to someone new, my now fiance, Tessa. We started spending time together, slowly at first, and then everything just clicked. She didn't just accept my photography, she supported it. She pushed me, she encouraged me to dream bigger, shoot more, try harder techniques, and take risks. And without realizing it, that support became the spark for my biggest growth I ever had in my work. When I look back on the moment where things truly started to shift, it wasn't just the fisherman's escape photo, even though that one was huge. It was the thousands of photos. It was the late nights, early mornings, failed attempts, and tiny breakthroughs, and slow progression that I didn't fully see until years later. When I go through my old galleries, I can literally watch myself change. I can see myself shifting from taking nice pictures into creating images that had feeling, intention, emotion, and weight behind them. That transformation didn't happen overnight. It came from continually pressing myself to do better when no one was watching. Around 2020 is when I decided I was done letting the camera think for me. I switched to shooting fully manual, and that decision changed everything. It gave me full control. It forced me to understand what the camera was doing on every single shot. And that's when I got obsessed. Learning longer exposures, exploring astrophotography, and pushing my camera in ways I never had before. I studied how light moves, how shutter changes the feeling of motion, how aperture shapes the mood, and how ISO can completely alter a scene. My real break came in 2021. That's when photography didn't just feel like something I was doing, it felt natural. Like the camera was finally an extension of how I saw the world, not a tool I was fighting to understand. That's when I started doing bigger things, more ambitious shoots, and more challenging techniques. Work that actually felt like mine. Looking back, I'm glad I started Barry's Photography in 2020, even when I was still figuring things out, because that first year wasn't about taking incredible photos. It was about learning what it means to build something with your own name on it. I had to figure out branding, designing logos, and understanding the financial side of a business, dealing with the taxes, setting prices, all that messy behind-the-scenes stuff nobody warns you about. And then there's something different about starting a business that carries your last name. It puts a level of pressure on you, and it makes you want to be damn sure that anybody who hires you gets good work. Because that work becomes a reflection of who you are. It's not just a photo, it's a Barry's Photography photo. And that meant something to me even in the beginning. And now, I'm into deep advanced techniques such as focus shift shooting, off-camera flash, blending exposures, and balancing harsh light with soft. All that growth comes from one thing. I hate staying the same. I want every new shoot to be better than the last, and I want to push the envelope. I want my next photo to surprise even me. A huge part of that drive comes from Tessa. There's something about showing her a photo and seeing her eyes light up that pushes me harder than anything else. She has seen everything, the good, the bad, the test shots, the ones I'd never even post. She knows how much time I've put into this, and she's been there through all of it. One of the things I'm most proud of helping her build is her own confidence behind the camera. Teaching her the basics and watching her build something of her own, and seeing her find her style. That's one of my biggest achievements of my photography journey. It's amazing to grow in something you love, but it's even better to help someone you love grow in it too. And then there's the validation part. Over the last 3 years especially, I've gotten feedback that actually meant something. When Colorblind won a contest and ended up hanging out O'Malley's, a photo I made about my own struggle with seeing color, that felt like more than just recognition. It felt like proof that being different doesn't mean you can't create something powerful. And when Lost got People's Choice, or when strangers stopped me at Riverboat Days just to tell me how they connected with my work, these moments reminded me that photography isn't just personal, it reaches people and it moves them. But here's the truth. Those wins, those comments, the external validation, they're only a small part of why I do this. I do this because of the way it makes me feel. Being behind the camera gives me a sense of calm nothing else does. It's the one place where the noise in my head shuts off, and it's the one place where I can slow down and actually see the world. The way the color hits a landscape, the way reflections change after a rainfall, the way light shifts right before the sun drops below the horizon, photography gives me that connection to the world that I don't feel anywhere else. It's not just about capturing a moment, it's about being present inside of it. But here's the thing I haven't fully said yet. None of this has happened in isolation. All that growth, all those breakthroughs, all those moments where I pushed through doubt or figured something out, they didn't happen in a vacuum. Yes, I am the one who presses the shutter, but the people in my life shaped who I am when I do. They've influenced the way I see the world, the way I create, and the person that I've become behind the lens. My friends through the years were the first people who really let me practice being myself. They were there during the chaos of high school when I didn't fully know who I was or where I was going. They gave me space to breathe, to joke around, to escape from everything going too fast, even the simple memories, driving around town, hanging out at the lake, and going to hockey. Those things taught me how important it is to have people in the world who make the world feel lighter. My parents have always been a quiet backbone of my story. They never tried to force me down a certain path or tell me what I should be doing. They let me figure out things the slow way, the hard way, the hands-on way. And looking back now, that freedom shaped everything. I never felt pressure to be perfect at photography. There wasn't an expectation that I had to turn it into something immediately or prove anything to anyone. I was allowed to take time, mess up, fail a lot, experiment, and slowly learn what the camera actually meant to me. That space made photography feel genuine, not forced. Even when they didn't fully understand what I was chasing, they supported it. Whether that meant letting me disappear for hours with my camera, or driving me to locations, or just simply trusting that I was figuring something out, they were always there in the background, steady and consistent. That kind of support doesn't always get talked about because it's quiet. It doesn't look like big speeches or constant praise, but it's the kind that lasts. And without that foundation, I don't think I would have found photography the way I did, or stuck with it long enough for it to really become a part of who I am. Then there are the people who come into my life for a season, but still left an impact. Coaches, teammates, classmates, the ones who made me stronger without even realizing it. Losing Blaine reminded me how quickly life can change, how important the people around us really are. Moments that stay with you, they shape the way you look at time, at relationships, and the things you care about. They make you realize not to take any of it for granted. And then there's Tessa. She didn't just support my photography, she believed in it in a way that made me want to push harder. It's one thing to create for yourself, but it's different when someone sees something in you you haven't fully seen for yourself yet. She pushed me, challenged me, and reminded me that settling is not an option. She's the reason I pushed past my comfort zone and why I tried new things, why I shot big projects, and why I believe my work actually mattered. Watching her start her own photography journey and seeing her thrive has become one of my favorite parts of my own story. It's like everything I've learned, everything I've struggled through, actually turned into something I could pass on. Photography may be something I do with my own hands, but the person behind the camera, the one that sees the world that way I do, was built by the people who stood with me along the way. And that is why I'm telling you all of this. Because people ask me how I got here, and they usually want to know about the camera, the settings, the techniques, but that's not the whole story. Here is what I actually want you to take from this. I think a lot of people assume that the path to doing something you love is to be clear from the start. That you're supposed to know what you're chasing, have a plan, follow the steps, and arrive at the finish line with everything figured out. But that's not how it worked out for me. I didn't start with a vision, I started with borrowed equipment. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a roadmap, I had a lot of confusion, a lot of failure, and a lot of moments where I almost walked away. That's the only reason I kept going, is because photography gave me something I couldn't find anywhere else. A place to slow down, to feel present, to make sense of the world when everything else felt chaotic. And the people who stood beside me through all of it, my parents, my friends, my sister, Tessa, they didn't just push me towards photography, they gave me room to figure it out. They believed in me even when I didn't fully believe in myself yet. So if there's one thing I hope you take from this, it's this. Whatever you're working on, whatever dream feels too big or too far away, you don't have to have it all figured out right now. You don't need permission to start messy. You don't need to be perfect before you begin. You just need to show up, keep turning the dials, and keep trying things you don't know how to do yet. And trust that the people who matter will see what you're building, even when you can't see it for yourself. Because one day, you'll look back and you'll realize that every failed shot, every confused moment, and every time you almost quit, those were the parts that made you who you are.